Hi there, Linda Behrens here. I just want to share with you some insights on what's new with cognitive dynamics, or really what's new with personality type. Let me start with a story. Back in 1994, I was doing MBTI qualifying programs, and um, there seemed to be a big challenge because you would do E and I and S and N and T and F and J and P, and then you would say, this is not about either or, it's both and. But people kept treating it as if it was either or, and so that if I had a preference for sensing, then I couldn't do those things that go with intuiting. And we realized at this time that this was not what Jung intended with his theory. His theory was really just to elucidate how we tend to privilege one of the 8 cognitive processes in our personality type, in the way we process information. And so I said to my colleague, well, we don't have to do it that way. So I just decided that I would put people through an experience of what we then called extroverted sensing and introverted sensing, and extroverted intuiting and introverted intuiting. So for extroverted sensing, I had people look around the room and notice things, and then notice if they were focusing on that would get kind of boring, and they would move on to noticing something else. And then I would have them review some things and notice how something reminded them of something else. Very simplistic. And they got it. They got it really quickly. And so over the years, several of us have worked with using what we call the 8 functions in terms of teaching people about personality differences. And that worked pretty well, but it still became confusing. So let me tell you another story. One of my very close friends and associates, brilliant, brilliant woman, years of experience, really understands a whole lot about people, lots of experience and practice with helping with change processes, reads complex things, brilliant. But every time I would go and talk about extroverted sensing or introverted sensing, her mind would just go blank. It was like, she just would tune out. It just didn't make any sense to her because it didn't have any real meaning. So we started using just plain English words. And that has helped overcome some of the problems that we've had with the alphabet soup of the letters, because they're processes that people can recognize when we use words like experiencing and interpreting and segmenting and analyzing. People can actually know what that means, and then they can start to relate to it. So what's new in cognitive dynamics, in a way, is a move away from the personality type code and using the 4-letter types, so that you can understand it at a deeper level and really get at something that helps you understand, what is my pattern of growth and development? Why am I not necessarily doing what I used to do so much, and I'm attracted to these other kinds of activities? What do I need to open up to? So having this approach helps us in looking at ourselves, and it helps those we facilitate help others learn about themselves in ways that are really much more dynamic and much more developmental. So it helps get us out of this tendency to put ourselves in boxes and to have labels. And one of the people I recently trained in our certification program, I asked her, doing it this other way, what did it do for you? And she said precisely that. It helped get rid of the labels. People saw that they could do all of these processes and that they tend to privilege some of the others. And it opened up their acceptance of the other processes when they were at play. So it gave them real world tools and more acceptance and less labeling. So this is a lot of what is going on in this world of using cognitive dynamics as a lens to understand individual differences. Now, there's another reason that I think there's something kind of new. This process, this approach, and the way that we're doing it and the tools that we're providing also have been helping people have a way to use the model and the lens in the background with people, even though they've only shared, say, let's say, the 4 essential motivator patterns or the 4 interaction style patterns. And so that having this plain English way of thinking about how we think about things gives us a way to identify what might be going on, and then to explain to somebody some of the variations in their patterns and some of the ways they're thinking about it without really introducing the complexity of type and type development. As we like to be here, we're on the leading edge with developing new ways of doing this to make it more useful. And it's really important to keep in mind that these are 8 cognitive processes that we all can use, that we privilege the different ones, and the kinds of awareness that we tend to have automatically may not be what's needed. And so instead of it being perceiving processes, we're talking about them as awareness processes. And then increasing your awareness. How do you expand the kinds of information that is needed in this fast-paced, complex world? And how do you find out what your superpower is in terms of the kinds of information that you want to pay attention to? And then instead of it calling judging processes, we call them evaluation. And so it's ways of evaluating that information. And what are some of the ways that we tend to enter a situation ready to categorize things and segment them and break them down into parts, or to analyze it and step back from it, or to weigh the value of it as we see what the value of something is, or to connect, and how do we find ways to connect with others. So those 4 words have deep meaning, and it also gives us a map for what we're doing every day, and where we have superpowers and where we don't, and where we can make space for those places we don't, for that to come into the picture. I hope you've enjoyed this little tidbit about what's new in cognitive dynamics.